I believe you should be able to hear me now. If that's the case, Miriam. So I'm just trying to, like just to get my setup ready. And I mean, it's good to be back here trying to stream. It's been a while. Um, Hello, everyone that is joining from wherever in the world you're joining us from. So this is me, your friend. I usually do these streams like this every Fridays and Saturdays if I'm able to, right? The goal is to, right, to help everybody get to understand JavaScript more, right? That's one of my focus. And yeah, I try to do that in a way to assist people who are just getting into like web development, software engineering and the likes. So I do this Friday for JavaScript, and on Saturday I try to talk about React or Next.js, as the case may be. And I think it's been a while. It's been a little long while, but I'm excited to be here. Good to see you all. I hope you're doing well. And we could just get the ball rolling and talk about some JavaScript stuff. Today, as the title of the stream said, I'll be talking about object.keys, object.values, object.entries, and then we have dot groups now. We have object.group, and we can also look at the structuring assignments in their different formats, right? So that's what I intend to do. I don't intend to spend so much time today, but at least it is it is something here to be back here. So to write code, I'm going to be using VS Code, right? Using Coca as a way to write all the code I'm writing. So majorly for those who are new to what Coca is, Coca allow us to write some bits and pieces of code here, right? And then you see immediately the result by the side, right? With the help of Node.js, right? Coca helps us to run our code and see the result by the side. Also, I should be using sometimes I might come in here to use Node, right, to maybe do whatever I want to do. So if I'm using Node here, I can do console.log here, the same thing here, right? We get to do the same thing here. Or if I'm doing Dino, I think I have Dino here. Okay, hi. If I'm doing Dino, it's also still the same thing as well. If I'm doing Dino here, and also we can use. I don't know why Dino is taking forever to load. Allow. Always allow. So if we're doing Dino here as well, we can always type here, right here. So we can also do the same thing here. Good to see you all though, right? I can also see like do console.log error here. I think I like the formatting here in Dino. Dino has good formatting here. And one more. Sometimes I like to use born.repel, right? Which uses SWC behind the scene, right? And it also has some little console, right? All of these things allow me to write JavaScript in their different shades. So they allow me to do different interesting bit of pieces. And also, right, I like to use javascript.info as my helper, right? I like to use JavaScript.info just to sort of like JavaScript.info or MDN, right? Just to guide me, just to help me in one way or the other. So where's my browser? So here we can do JavaScript.info, and so for those who don't know, I love JavaScript.info a lot, and that's what I've been using to like do a guide for all the things I am doing here. So if you look at, I've talked about, there's a previous stream where I talked about JSON methods. There was a stream where I talked about date and time. I don't know if Bosse is on the call. I think I had Bosse and Stanley were around for, and Shegun, I think Shegun too was around when I did the date and time. And the date and time also took us into some, digging deep into the future of date and time in JavaScript, right there. So think I'm trying to locate all my gists and let me see some of the things. So some of my quotes are stored on gist if I have them here. So I don't know, has anybody here heard about temporal, right? Temporal, right, which is the new thing, right, that powers the date management system. Whoa, they have a new documentation. Yes. No, it's not this one. It shouldn't be this one. I don't think it's this one. This is not the temporal that I'm looking for. Go back. Or this should be the temporal that I'm looking for. So here, this is the new thing that is going to be powering the date and time in JavaScript, right? So like there's a stream where I talked deep about what this is also going to bring as well, right? So if you want to also check, you can check my previous episodes and whatnot I did there. So I did talk about how this could work, how we can use this to to write code, right? But today the focus is what? The focus is on Object.keys, Object.values, Object entries, and possibly, right, we also get to see object. We don't have Object.groups here, but if you check MDN, Object.group, that's a new thing. That's a new thing coming into JavaScript entirely. It's a new thing. Object.group by, right? So it's a very new thing coming into JavaScript, right? And we have it in the major browsers. We have it in Google Chrome, Edge, Firefox, and Safari. So this is another very interesting method right here that we also can talk about, that we'll be talking about today. And the last thing I want to talk about is what I want to talk about: the structuring assignment, right? So we have array destructuring, or you have object destructuring, and just to look at them and just get a little deeper understanding about them, right? So that's what I'm supposed to talk about today, right? So let's get the ball rolling. Now, when we talk about objects, right, I think the starting point for objects is that we are able to just, anytime we are using object or you want to use object in your code, right, you can just do const, right, obj, right, as my favorite. It's my favorite way to declare object. And I have objects. This is an object, right? And I mean, we could do something like this. This is not common, but another, we could do obj, right, object dot, I think we can do something that looks like this, and you can pass it a value that looks like this. So but this is not common, and this is not common at all. The second version there is not common, where you use the object as a constructor, right, and you begin to pass it different things there. But for those of us who have been with me for a while would know that whatever this object constructor is doing is the same thing that this curly brackets here is doing, right? Just the same thing. One is just the constructor, and one is just like literal declaration of objects. So what are the special thing about objects? Whenever you're declaring object, we have something we call the keys and value, right? So when you look at this right here, A is a key, and one is a value. Also, you can look at the next one where we have B as the key and 2 as the value, right? C is the key, and D3 as the value. And we can also call them in terms of properties and value. So I just said we we can call them keys and value. Other persons can also call them properties and value, right? We're still saying the same thing. So it's just like what A is the property and what one is the what value. Here is the property and one is the value. So that is just the basic things that we can do with what just declaring, getting to declare what object. But if I want to take them forward into what we have today, what we have today is what object dot what dot keys, right? I think maybe we should just talk about object dot create, right? If there is, I think I've talked about object dot create before now on one episode of my stream, right? So object dot create allow us to also what whenever you want to create objects, it allows us to pass what to pass a literal object, right, alongside. So when you pass a literal object, you can put something like this here, and you can say something like this, and you can say hey colon what one, and this is also what another way to declare or to create what new object. So this is very just for you if you're just joining, you're just new to JavaScript and stuff, right? To get your hands dirty about creating an object, this is the way to create objects. We also have some other interesting ways, right? How many of us know about object.assign? Right, we have object.assign, right, which does some interesting, some interesting things for us, right? Yeah, it helps us to duplicate, to clone, right, different thing, different, like to create a new object entirely, right, from the flow, right? And we also have so if you look at MDN is always the go-to place, right? Anytime you want to do. So if you look at the static methods, we have assign, we have create, we have define properties, and we have define properties with S, we have define property, right? And we have what entries, we have object.freeze, we have object.from entries, we have object.get property descriptor, and then we have object.get property descriptors with S, and then we have what object.what get own property names, and we have object.what get own property symbol, and we also have object.get what prototype of, and we then have object.what group by, and we also have other ones like object.has own, we have object.is, then you have object.is extensible, object.is frozen, object.is sealed, object.keys, object.prevent extensions, and we have object.seal, object.set prototype of, and object.value, right? These are the static methods. Please give me a second. Okay. So basically that is what we have with what object dot the various object dot object dot what the various object static methods. Do we know what static method means? For those of us who are new to JavaScript, we have an idea of what static method means. I mean, anytime you see the word static method means that when you create a constructor, you can when you have like a constructor like object, you don't need to do new object before you like use the methods. That is, static methods are what? They are methods that are attached to the constructor itself. They are not attached to the result of the construction. They are just attached to the object itself. And that's why you can see it's called object.what create, object.is, object.is frozen, right? They are attached to the what? To the constructor. And whereas when you have some other method, some method like your instance method now, or yeah, that will be attached to what? Whatever was created. For example, now, if you look at what the instance method, some of this instance method that you can see here, right? Object.prototype.value of, that is, anytime I create an object, then that object that I create is an instance of the big object in itself, right? And so you would have what dot value of, you have dot to string, dot to local string, dot property is enumerable, right? Dot is prototype of, dot has own property. So those ones there, they are what instance what method, and we also have instance properties, right? So let's just see what they have. Basically, if you're looking at my focus again is around object.keys today. So what does object.keys do for us? What does object.key? What does it do? So anytime you see the word object.keys, right, we can hover on it. Does it say anything? Oh, MDN has something for us. It says that it returns what? The name of what? The enumerable string properties and methods of what? Of an object. So what does it expect us to pass alongside? Well, it expects me to pass an object inside of this place. And it's going to give me what? A string of what? A string of what? The what? The properties, right? A string that contains what? Like an array of strings of the properties. So for example, now, if I look at what? This object that I have off the top here, what are the what? What are the what properties that I have? What are the keys that I have here? A is a key, B is a key, and C is a key. So automatically, right, if I run object.key on that A, right, I expect it to give me something. Did I call the name of the object A? Okay, so I called it OBJ. Sorry. So we called it OBJ. So here we can see, so you can automatically see, right, the result of what I have here, right? It gives me what? The arrays of the keys, right? So I can see A, B, and C right there. So that's what key does. Object.key is very simple, very easy for us to remember. So anytime you have an object and you need to get the properties, like the keys right there, or need to get the property, right? You can just refer back to what, right? Does it convert object to an array of string? No, it doesn't convert the object. It just gives us like, it gives us what? The arrays of keys. That's what object.key does for us. So again, our real object is intact, right? So we can just call this what? Array of what? Of what? The keys. The real thing is what? Still there. So when we are done here, we can say array of keys. We have array of keys, and we still have our obj intact, right? So you're still gonna have your object, right? But it just gives us an array of the keys. It gives us an arrays of the keys. It gives us arrays of the keys, basically. And if you look at the opposite, the other similar version of that is what? If we need the array of values, right? Array of the values of this thing, array of the values, right? Then we can do what? For array of the values, what can we use? Array of the values, what can we use? Then we can do what? Object dot what? Dot values. Object dot values, right? And it gives us what? The value. So if we can now say what? Array of what? Of values. Array of values. So you now have what? A way for us to get independently the array of the keys and what? The array of the values. So this is very cool, right? Because again, it is very powerful. Most times when you make an API call to a particular API, it gives you object or a JSON of information. And sometimes you want to get you need a value or you need the key, right? You just slap it what? Object dot what? Dot keys. Can we do this with reduce? Is it possible for us to do this with reduce? Instead of using this object.keys, can we use reduce? Can we use reduce? Can I stress somebody today? Can I stress somebody today? Again, we can just, you can always get creative, right? You can get creative with, different things of what? Array of keys from reduce. And we can do something like this. What do we have? We have an object, or let's just say empty array dot what? Reduce. Empty array dot reduce. Do I want to call empty array dot reduce? So if we want to reduce something, right, we can do something that looks like this. And you can set the initial to be, I think I'm going to need, I don't think we can do, we can create arrays of keys with the reduce though. I'm not sure we can do this. But let me think about it very well. Let me think about this very well. obj dot obj is the object, then obj dot call. Can I do a dot call? No, don't let me stress myself too much. But I think I should be able to do it. I mean, let's see. I should be able to bring out, because I was thinking about it. So, before we had Object.keys, for us to get something like this, how do you think if we want to get array.keys? Definitely, we can do the for in. You can do the for in loop, right? You can do let key in. So here you can then create an empty array off the top, right? Just create an empty array off the top. So let keys equals to something that looks like this, empty array, let values equals to something that looks like this. And eventually here, you then want to do what? Key.push, right? And you want to do value.push. And outside of this place, then you want to console.log keys, right? And you want to console.log values. So basically, before we had object.keys, this was the way we usually do it. But I mean, let me stress myself. Let's see if we can ask ChatGPT for some interesting things here. Let's see, ChatGPT. Let's stress ChatGPT a little bit. Create array dot what? Array object.key from array.reduce. I think it's possible to be able to use array.reduce to do this. No, this is not what I ask you to do. This is not what I ask you to do. I mean, if I think about it properly, I think I might be able to come up with a code to do this. But you all get the gist here. The gist is not anything serious here. So here in your VS Code, we're just able to just get the keys of an object, and you're able to get the values of an object easily by just using what? Object.keys. It's good to know your JavaScript, right? When you know your JavaScript, you have some power. So if we want to get the combination of keys and value, if we want to get the combinations of keys and value, what do we use? If you want to get the combinations of keys and value, what can we use? And that is where what? Entries come into the picture, right? So we have what? Object.what? Entries with s, and we can say what? The array of the entries now, right? You can now say array of object of obj, right? Array of obj will then be what? This. And if we now console.log this, what do we have? What are we going to have? So it's just going to be what? Combination of what? What are we going to have here now? What are we going to have here? The combination of what? Each of what? The combination of each of them. So it will pick what? A particular key, right? Comma, and its value, and put them inside of an array. And I think that this is very cool, right? I think this is very cool. So if we want to also implement this with our for in loop, right, what can we do? So we need to add one more array here and say what? Let entries be this empty array. And now we then want to create what? We now want to do something like what? Entry.push. I mean, this is beautiful, right? It's just so beautiful that now you can just call a function that calls all these things for you on your behalf right there. So you can see that what? If we check, where's our for off now? So if you check entries at the end here, we have the same thing there. So do we all understand object.keys, object.values, and object.entries? They are very cool, right? They're very cool in terms of how we can quickly use them to quickly extract out what? Your keys, extract out your values, and extract out your what? Entries, as the case may be. Again, the entry one can be complicated if you're not very careful, but it's nothing serious there, other than the fact that what you inside of each one you have what? It combines the key and the value into an array, right? And that's the end. The keys and value as an array, the key and value as an array, and everything will be kept inside one array. So if you now want to find, you can now use array dot. If you want to find a particular thing, then you can then use your array methods to find different things there. Any question? Any questions? Any questions? Any questions? But I feel like you all get the gist. Except the entries. Should I run the entries again? Right? You want me to run the entries again so that I can run it one more time, right? Object.entries. So for the entries, right, the big deal with the entries is just like we use the keys and the keys and the value, right? You just pass it straight up into what? You pass it straight into what? Object.entries, and you pass it the object. What does it expect to give us? Right? It expects to give us back what? One array. You just pass object.entries right there. And what is it going to give to us? It will first return everything inside one array, right? And inside of the array now, it will now put what? Beside each other, side by side, it will put what? The key, right? And what? Its respective value into an array. So it will put what inside of a single array now, right? So you would have each of the entries of your object, they will be in separate arrays. So for example, right, the first one here, we have what? Our A and what? 1 inside what? A particular array, and your B and 2 inside another array, and you have what? Your C and 3 inside another array. So it's a way to, like, when you have object, if you want to convert your object straight down into an array, right, object.entries is the right way to go about that. Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Right? It's very, very cool, very, very interesting there. So now we have one more, right? Which is what? A way to reverse what? Dot entries. A way to reverse dot entries. Does that make sense? Rolla, does that make sense? Right? The way your object dot entries work. So object dot entries helps us to what? To just put the whole thing that you have inside of an object, just to put it back into an array for you so that you can control everything right there. So how many of us have heard of object dot from entries? Object dot from entries. Object dot from entries. What do you think is going to be doing? Object dot from entries. What do you think this is going to be doing? Object dot from entries. What do you think this is going to do? What do you think this is going to do? Can anybody guess what it's doing now? So object dot from entries is cool, right? So you need a way to teleport back to your object, right? You need a way to just go back to your object, right? You just call what object dot from entries, and you just switch back to objects. Cool, no stress. Looping over the entries. Yes. So object dot from entries sort of it loops over the entry to give us back our object, right? That's very cool, right? It loops over what? The entries, right? So the only thing you should pass to object.entry is likely what? The result of an object.entry, or a array that is constructed that matches what your from entry is expecting, right? So that is very key, right? So for the first time there, you need to understand what is expecting. Now we need something. Give me something. Give me something. MDN is not working. So it changed our object array back to object. Yeah, you're right, Chidima. So if we check MDN and we go for object dot from entries, MDN is the number one place for what? Anything you want to do right there. So most of the time, how many of us know about, maybe we should just use that opportunity to talk about maps and sets today. Because as I'm seeing this code, right, it's tempting me to talk about maps and sets. How many of us have used maps and sets before? Maps and sets. So they are also very interesting thing, but don't let me jump into them. They are very interesting on their own. But so if you look at this now, what do we have here? You have what? This array here. In what scenario will we need object.entries? I mean, the scenario where you will need your object.entry is basically straightforward in the sense that, say you just have objects from let's play with an API call. can we play with an API call? I think I should have fetch here in Node.js. Do we have fetch here in Node.js? Okay, let's fetch something here. Let's see. We can fetch something here, right? And right here. Is this correct? Is this correct? To do one, right? To do one. So if you look at this now, what is this here? What do we have here? We have a single to do, right? That is from like a turnable object, right? A turnable object. So you have user ID1, then title is equals to this and completed is equals to false. So this is a object that this particular API returns. So if you don't know what this API does, right, we can just copy this API again and put it in the terminal so that you can see what this API does. I think it's been a while I've made API calls in my terminal though. API HTTP, I think it's HTTP, and I can paste this here. Okay, it gives me what I want. I don't want can you pass this to JQ or BAT? Is it JQ or BAT now? I want formatting. So this is what this API gives to me. Can you see what this API returns back to us if we make this API call? So if we make this API call, it gives us what? A user ID, the ID, and the title. This is object. Is that correct? Right, this is object. So we can, I think we can use JQ here as well. I think if it is JQ here, there should be formatting. Okay, yeah, we got some formatting here. So JQ, how many of us know what JQ is? JQ is very powerful, right? JQ is very powerful. If you look at what JQ can do, JQ can just break into that object structure and give me information about it. So these are cool tricks that you can always have as engineers to just test out APIs and stuff on your own hand. So right here, JQ gives us what? JQ gives us so JQ thing is just like a terminal or a CLI helper. Do I have JQ on my Windows computer? I'm not sure, but I should because I normally Abdul Qadri, how are you? Good to see you. So JQ is a utility that you can sort of like install on your computer, and you can see it is an utility, right? It's just like what? Can you see this? Is it tiny? Can we see this? Is what a utility like said for JSON data. You can use it to slice, filter, map, transform, structure data with the same ease. So your said, I think I don't know if I've used said before, but it's been a while I've done things like this. Said, it's been a while I've done stuff around. Don't let me disgrace myself. CLI is not for simple engineers like me. All right, I'm still learning, like many of you. I'm still learning, so I don't know much. But anytime you're talking about said, or you're talking about awk, right, AWK, or you're talking about grep, right, what those things helps us to do is they just help us to play with data to return something. For example, I think with grep you can search for something. Grep, I think grep help. It helps us to no. I think, how do I get help for grep? I can't remember how to get help for all these things anymore. Is it single help? Because it's been a while I've used this. I think man grep. Sorry, it should be man grep. What am I doing? Man grep. So man grep is like, this like a utility that is installed on your computer for what? File what? Pattern searcher, right? It helps you to search through description. File grep is what? It searches any given input file, right? Selecting the lines and what. So if you have like a line of code, right, you can use grep to search through it to find something. So if you have like a very long line, right, you can use by default a pattern matcher matches an input line in regular expression. So it uses regular expression behind the scene to match some things. So that is, on a high level, that's what it. So here it will find what? All the occurrence of Patricia in a particular file, right? So we can do some interesting things here. and it will find what? Yeah, it will find the same word as above, but it's looking for complete word. So it will look for what? Complete word. I think here it can look for whether it is broken down or not. You also have count the occurrence. So if you pass hyphen C, yeah, right, and if you pass hyphen high, to ignore the case. So let's look for something that we can just do. I think so. These ones here, what they do again is what they are what pattern matcher. They are not anything serious. Do I have any file here? Let's see. Bat package.json. Sorry, it's code I'm talking about. I'm talking about JavaScript. I started talking about bash and CLIs. Right. Right. So here we can just do something like grep. We are finding I think we can do this. Let's just find maybe version inside of package.json. I think so, something like this. This is what grep does for us. So it will search for that, it will search through that package.json and look for the word version. Do you see what grep does now? So that's what grep does, right? Any file, you just pass it to grep. Grep sort of helps you to search through. Now, if we do sed helps you to search through. So sed is more like what? A stream editor, and it's quite more powerful in the sense that it doesn't have to search through like a static file on your computer, but it can search through what? More complicated ones, like bigger complicated ones, most especially streams, right? I've not used this a lot in my entire life, but they are very powerful, right? If you see like people who are like badass engineers that know how to use all these ones, I probably don't even know how to use it. So when you look at this now, if we copy this, right, I just copy this and just use this in our work. Or maybe we should just open another terminal somewhere beside here, and we could just open another terminal and paste what we just copied, right? So here we have what this is like this is something that you want to echo out, right? Then you want sed to look through it and check for what? Anything that matches. I think here is going to check for anything that has bar, bar, and it's going to replace it with baz. Does this make sense? Can you see my terminal? Can we all see my terminal? Right? It's just going to search through like as you because this one is not a file now. This is like a stream of text, a body of text. So it will then search through it and replace the bar with ba what z. And if you press enter there, it will now output back what the replaced version. So if you look at it in the simple terms here, you can see the word baz. Does that make sense? So that's something that what z does, right? Se what said se this. So here I think in this file here, what was I doing? I was trying to remove what? I was trying to replace what? I was trying to replace add with what? The title of the function is I want to replace the title of the function with what? Some special, right? So and I think this is a global. So once you put this global here, it sort of like search through the whole computer, right? As many files that you have, it will just keep just replacing with the new thing there. And I think the last one is arc, awk, arc. It is like they are very powerful. Like, to be honest, I really don't know how to use many of those things, but they are so powerful. Most especially if you are using a Mac, you don't know the power that you have. How many of us are using Mac, right? If you're using Mac, right, you don't know how much powerful like stuff you have on your computer. Like you're just using a Mac, you don't know like this is like some very badass machine that you have with you there. Then ARC or AWK, it's also like pattern directed scanning and processing. So it also does matching, scanning, and some of the syntax is what AWK -F capital F or small letter F, then -V for variable, then prog or prog file, right? So it scans the input file for lines that match a particular patterns, right? And with each pattern, you can associate an action with it that should be performed. So I don't know so much about it, but we'll just look for one example if we can see one example. So I think part of the thing there is that it allows you to write like crazy things. You can write the if statement, right? You can write a while statement inside of that same command that you're passing, and you can, you can do different, different advanced stuff right there. So let's just look for once, and it can do, if you look at it again, it can do dot length, dot s random, then it can do int, right, substring. I mean, this is like a class in JavaScript on its own. This is like an array class on its own. So it is very, very powerful, like if you know how to like use it. But let's see if we can see one small example that we can work with. So here, I just need one example that is simple, that is not okay. So this is a prog file, right? Don't want to do anything complex. These ones are with the ones with a prog file, but let me see if I've written one before in my life. Let's see if I find one that I've written. AWK. Let's see. C east or east. And let me see if I've done AWK before. I've not used AWK before. Let me just ask ChatGPT to give us an example of AWK, because I don't want to write anything off my head. Give me an example of how to use AWK. So now it's too much. Just give me small example. ChatGPT does not calm down. It will just do too much. I say just give me small example. The thing is giving me big example. All right. So let's just see if we can copy this. Let's create this file. Let's call it what? What do they call it again? They call it data.txt. Quit here. So we can say touch data.txt and pass it to Z, right, to open it. Pass it to Z dot to open it. So I want you to open something. Where's text.this? We have this there, and we can paste the entry here. Can you just save it for me? Why are you not saving? Yeah, save. How are you not saving? I don't know why. Z is showing itself. Z is not showing. BAT data.txt. Okay, so we have something inside data.txt, and what did ChatGPT ask us to do? So we can just copy this code here, and again. So basically, it is printing, like, it's just a way to what? It's just a way to like take over each thing that is there. So the $1 is representing the first word, and the $2 is representing the second word. So it's just a way to pattern match. I don't know if you're able to see what is going on there. So these things are like very powerful, right? And I think you can do hello $1. How can I pass it a text? I don't know how to pass it a raw text, but there should be a way to pass it hello. I think I should be able to pass it hello here, and not here, not that place. Don't know how to pass it. But if I study the AWK very well, it has some nice pattern matching, powerful pattern matching. I think it should be outside here. Sorry. If I'm going to pass it anything, let's see if this is going to work. Okay, it's not working still. It's not working. But you get a gist of the AW what AWK org and what said or what grep does. They are built into all Linux infrastructure. So if you have Linux infrastructures, right, they are built into all the Linux infrastructure. So whether you're using a Mac or whatever you're using, right, they are built in there. They are powerful pattern matching. They are powerful pattern matching capabilities that 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 all these applications have. And majorly, if you look at all these VS Code and all these other tools, right, many of them use all these utility behind scenes. They use all these powerful utilities behind scene, right, to just make things happen. Yeah. So another thing that this does is, I think you can print the $1, then you can check for something that looks like this. So print row based on condition. So if the content of S3, right, the third thing is what is greater than 30, you want to print it here. So the $1, $2, I think that represent columns, right? And look at this complex one. So yeah, it calculates what? It can calculate the average age of people listed in a particular file. Jeez. Like, this thing is very powerful, right? It's just very, very powerful. If you know how to, like, maybe, if you know how to use it to your advantage. So here we have 25, 30, and 45. So I guess that we can now, where's chat GPT? We can then copy this one, because I don't even want to write this. I'm just going to copy and paste it. I'm just going to copy and paste this. What? This is so beautiful, right? I don't even understand. This is like programming on its own, right? It's just very crazy, right? It's just like you writing programming on your own. Because I know, like, with the power that you have with AWK, right? You can write if statements, you can write loops and write all these other things. You can do other crazy things there. But you see the way it's able to find the average of all the three ages that you have there. And I think if we want to print out the three things, if we want to print out the, I think we can then print out the third one, right, which is what their age alongside. So the average of 25 plus 30 plus 22 plus 45 is 30.5. And you see how to do it here, right? Jeez. This looks very, very interesting. So that is like the pattern matching with SED or AWK or grep. They are very powerful in that regard. So that is similar. So you can imagine that AWK, these ones are just like they work with any file, but JQ only works with what? JQ only works with what? JSON. Or majorly works with JSON. It majorly works with JSON. That's basically what it does. It majorly works with JSON. So it allows us to do different interesting where's the manual. It allows us to do different things here. So if you go to GitHub, you find something, right, you can pass it to JQ, right? So JQ can then take it and start. So you can if it's an array of stuff, right, you can ask for the first thing, right? Or you want to create another object out of it, right? You could just do anything, so long as so you can create an object outside of what all of the things that is being created. So that's what JQ can do for you. So for those who don't know about JQ now, right, you have a small idea of what JQ can do right now. Because so if we make an API call using HTTP, and if I pass the whole thing to JQ, so JQ can just give me back the whole object that is returned back, and that's what JQ does for me. And I think you can. So now what we want to do here is that, what brought us here is that we make this API call, and then we are able to to play with. Somebody asks for what are the use case scenario for using object.entry. So you can imagine you made an API call, you got your object, and you want to turn this into an array for you to do something. Or maybe let's say, can we get all to-dos now? Is it possible for us to get all to-dos? Okay, how many to-dos? So look at this now. This is what? Array of what? array of 100 to dos, right? Array of 100 to dos. Or so maybe there are some APIs that instead of them returning object, instead of them to return an array, they can return object. So something like that. Yeah, different APIs with different weird behavior. All right. So let's say an API returns an object, and what you need to do, whatever you want to do, is an array. So what you can just do is what? You just pass the whole thing down to what? Object dot what? You pass it to object dot what? Dot entries, right? And it takes the object back and it gives you back what? It spills down back an array that you can now use for whatever you want to do. Why is it empty? Why is it empty? Is this a promise? Is this a promise? This is not supposed to be a promise anymore. Fetch dot then is to do one a promise. Console.log to do one. It should not even be a promise anymore. Shouldn't be a promise anymore. We can't use top level await. Let's see what we can do. I thought I did dot then, fetch dot then, response and return. Let's do const result res equals to this, and you can then return res. It's still returning. So basically right here, maybe it's because of the way fetch works here. So it's still returning an high level promise, and it's not going to do what I want it to do. So I could just do it here on this line here. I can do, or better still, let's just do, okay, let's just put everything inside an immediately invoked function expression. Let's put everything inside immediately invoked function expression. Do we know immediately invoked function expression? This is an immediately invoked function expression, right? And I can then do async here, and I can drag my code into that line, and can I do an immediately invoked function expression? Unexpected keyword const. All right, number one. Let's do this. Let's do this here so we can spread this whole thing. I'm still getting an error somewhere. Oh, look at me here. Look at me here. And object.entries is not a function. No, let's just do this here to end this here. So here, I think we've been able to make this API call here, and console.log. So here we should be able to await here now. We can await here, and if I console.log to do now, I should not get a promise anymore because I don't want a promise. Let's see. Let's immediately invoke this. To do one is not available. Why is to do one not available? Why is to do one not available? Or better still, Let's see. Let's just break this down completely into the then variable version. So let's do we can do const response equals to do one, because response equals to do one dot what, to do one dot, let's do this, so let's see, this is, no, I'm not sure we need that. We don't need this anymore. And you make this API call. What do we have for to do one? To do one should be a promise, right? Just console.log this. Console.log this, Control Shift P, Control Shift P, wrap with console.log. Sorry, is something wrong or not? Let's just, okay, this is what is busting the code. Oh my god. Oh my god, look at what is busting the code. So we have, this is supposed to be, right, a response. Then we want the response to be converted to, then we can then do an await of this, right? Do an await of response.json. Oh, sorry, there's nothing called response here. So you want to do an await of to do one.json, and we can console.log response. Console.log response. So we have pure data here. So if we have a pure object here now, we have a pure object here. Just this is the object that we have, pure object. And so you can break down the pure object and say, okay, can you give me the object.entries of this? Because I want to deal with my data in terms of what? In terms of what? Object, right? And you can say dot entries, and you can pass it what? Response, right? And yeah, we should see something getting logged now. So now we now have object dot, all right. So we can now say what? Let what? Entries ent, right? Ent equals to this. And if you check the result of ent now, right, ent is now what? Array of what? Different things, array of different things. And so this can be situations where, you know, this can be situations where you just need, this can be a scenario where we need to use what's it called now, where you need to use what? Entries. It's not all the time that you have a situation like this, but there are going to be, you know, specific times where you fall into situations like this where you need what? Entries. Another interesting thing is, if we go to map, let's say we talk about maps and sets today, right? Maps and set allow us to use what? Entries a lot, because most of the time whatever you get from your maps needs to be turned into, like, if we are creating like a new map entry now, right? Maps is just like a data, what? A data structure, right? That can accept an entry. Basically it accepts, I think it's supposed to accept an entry. I'm struggling to remember the format that it accepts though for maps, but let me confirm. So map accepts arrays inside arrays. So you have to do something like this, and then you now say what? This will be what? String A, and this will be the value. So this is what maps accept. So if maps accept something like this, right, then you have what? Const map map, right, equals to this. And if you console.log whatever you have now, this is a map, right? It's just a map. This is not, so this is a map. It's not, it definitely looks like a object, but this is a map, right? So if you now want to get your value back, you can then do map.get, right? Do we have map.get? So if you say map.get here, right? Map.getAge should give us what 1 bar. And we also have map.set, right? You can set what the value of what, set the value of a and change it to what 4, right? And so after that point, if we request for our map again, right, our map has changed. So basically this is, I think you can also do map.add. Is it hard now? I can't remember the other mode, but that's some other, I think it should be hard. Yeah, you should be able to add another one, and you can say b, and it has like maybe it's 5. Is it hard? Can somebody confirm how to add a new map for me? Method to add a new map. If you want to add like a new entry to maps, just do maps. So maps and sets are map. As is to check whether it has something. If you want to add new entry, so we have map dot get as keys, add new values. No, I think, how do I add new values? I don't think there's a way to add new values to maps. Okay, there's no way to add a new thing to them. We don't have a new way to. Set is to just set a new value. So I think they don't have a API to add new value. So if you want to add new value, you probably can I update a map? How do you update maps? That's interesting though. I've never thought about it before. If you have a data and you want to update it. No, if you want to add in a new field entirely. That's interesting. So basically that's just what map, and this is also is similar to what sets, because maps and set are, they are brothers and sisters, right? Set is just unique, right? The only difference that set is bringing is that set is unique in the way set works. So anytime you want to use set expects what? Unique values. So most of the time you would have seen some questions where they'll give you an array, right? Give you an array, and you have maybe 1, 2, 7. You have repeated numbers, right? You have 1. So if you want to get what? A clean one, right? A unique set, right? You could just do what? Just turn it into a set and what? And log the set, right? Turn it into a set, right? And log the set. Set would have what? New set. We can comment out this error, right? So set would what? Set would return like what? Unique entries of all those things there. I think we can do set dot values eventually, right? And set dot values will give us what? All of our, is it set dot values or set dot set dot, yeah, set dot values is supposed to give us something. Set dot values, is it logging it or let's see. Set dot values, let's see, let p equals to this, and you want v to be logged. What else? Okay, I think it returns an iterator. I'm not sure what the values of set returns, but let's see. Yeah, I think it returns an iterator. Yeah, it returns an iterator. So if you want to get the value, right, it has to be what? v.next, right? v.next, and we can start seeing the values, right? v.next, and you do the next one there, and you want to see everything there. So, but how do I convert it into an array back? I think I should be able to convert it to an array back by doing entries. I think entries is supposed to convert it back. Yeah, so that's so basically maps and sets are kind of like very similar in the ways to use them, but it helps, is a way to give us, it's a way to give us it's a way to give us like a unique set of things. So let me convert everything back to entries, and I think I have v, and if we console log v is an empty object. So you want to pass, I think, please can you give me a sec? Sorry about that. So looking for a way to convert whatever I have from sets to arrays. Can I convert it to an arrays? Yeah. So you can see that whatever we had from sets now, we're able to convert it to arrays. I want values. I think I just want values. Values. Can I convert the values directly? So you can see that the array.from value now is now like whatever you have here is now the array.from here is unique, right? It's the way to just get like the unique entry of that thing. So that's what you have with what. Yeah. So anytime you get object like this from APIs, right, you can use object.entries to just turn it into an array, because most of the time when we are actually, let's say you are rendering something in React, you don't render objects now, right? It's not like you want to render the object, most especially if it's like from an API. What you render is like an array of something. And if you want to call your maybe array.map on something, right, that you want to render in React, so you need a way to just like convert the whole thing back to arrays. So that's one of the advantage that you have with what, with the from entries. We were talking about from entries, right? There is the from entries, right? From entries. So from entries takes what, the result of an entry or whatever you have there, and it returns back the exact object back to us, and we are able to what, to use that same thing. So that same way again here, we can take whatever we have here, which is ent, right? Whatever you have for the ent here. Why am I getting this error? Something is busting something here. Object.from entries is not a function. See, from is it called from entries? What is it called again? Object.from entries. From entries. Yeah, from entries should be something that we can use. Let's copy this to be sure that we are copying the right thing. Are you telling me that Node.js does not support this from entries? That's very, very weird. Okay. It does. It's because of this immediately invoked function expression. So immediately invoked function expressions can be very stubborn, most especially the way I'm calling it now. And so if there is no semicolon here, right, there is a problem in my code, because it is joining this line with the immediately invoked function expression. So automatic semicolon insertion in JavaScript is a problem if you are not very careful. The automatic insertion of semicolon in JavaScript is a problem if you're not very careful, most especially if you don't know that sometimes your code can automatically insert semicolons for you, right? Just so that the compiler can run the code. So your from entries turns entry back to what? Down back to their respective object. So just to quickly run down at destructuring, right? Destructuring. So what is destructuring, right? You destroy the structure of something. So if we have object that we've declared earlier on, right, I can destructure it by what? By putting these curly brackets of object here very close to the const. So this would declare a new variable called A for me, a new variable called B for me, and a new variable called C. So that's what destructuring does. It destroys the structure and extract out the important things there. So this is object destructuring. That is, here I'm trying to destructure something, right, based on it being an object. And another thing that we can do is, if we have array destructure, right, you can now say what, const first, right? First, you can extract the first thing from an array, right? That's the first thing. And if I want to extract the second thing out, I can say comma second thing, right? Or I can say the last thing. So if I hover on the first thing, it gives me the first value, right? If I hover on what, the second, that should be what, let's see what we have, right? If you do console.log what first, right, So first is what the first thing, right? And second is what the second thing inside of that array. So that way, destructures this array, right? Gets each members, gives us the ability to get each members. That's what destructuring does for us. And also, when we are talking about destructuring, we then have the power to, to talk about what when you're talking about destructuring, you have the power to talk about you can set default values when you're destructuring, or you can rename something when you're destructuring. You can go ahead and rename different things. So here, I think here with the object destructuring, I can go here and turn this to Z. So now I don't have access to A anymore, right? I can't do A anymore because A won't be defined. What will be defined for me is what Z, right? Because what it did do, it destructured what A out of obj and gave me the power to rename it to Z, right? And so I can rename it to what? First value, right? So now I'm not going to have A anymore, right? I'm going to have what? The new name will be what? First value, right? So that is what you, when you destructure, now you also want to what? Rename, right? And if a value does not exist, you can use equals to set the default value. I'm not sure whether that is permitted within object. So let's say C does not exist here, right? If C does not exist here, what am I doing here now? So if C does not exist, right? C does not exist inside also. It will check here. C does not exist. So now I am setting C as a default value, right? And if you look at it, right, the default value for my C is now what? 10. So I'm saying that if I destructure something, because anytime you destructure something and that thing does not exist, your compiler will run into an error. So let's assume I didn't put this equals to here, right, to set the default, right? C will be undefined. Sometimes it can even break the code, right? Depending on the version of Node.js that you're using, it can break your code, right? So let's say you went ahead and say you want to use you want to say C dot something, C dot maybe name. So it will tell you that, well, there's nothing called name, right? Because even C in itself, C is undefined. So that's what destructuring, object destructuring. When you destructure something, you can rename something, or you can set a default value on that particular thing, right there. So those are some of the powers that we have with destructuring. But another thing that destructuring brings to the table is, how many of us know that destructuring brings the ability to use what? REST, right? The spreading and REST, right? Destructuring helps us to use what? REST. So for example, now instead of us just what, if inside of this array you want to take the first thing and the rest of them, so you can say what, the first, right, and the rest, right? And when you say the rest here, you signify like putting this here signifies I want all of the other things, like the rest of them that is there. And now I don't have second anymore, but I can do what, the rest of them. So the rest of them is going to be a new array, excluding what, the first one, excluding the first one. So the structuring is so beautiful, so handy, right? If you really want to quickly get things done very fast, and that's the advantage of what, the rest, right? When you're using the rest with destructuring, it works with array destructuring, or it works with what? So it is the rest here that is working, not the spread, right? So you don't have to mix them up, right? It is the rest, right, not spread operator. Because if we are talking about spread allows me to create what, new what, object. This is what spread looks like, right? I am spreading what, just like I'm spreading bread and butter, right? I'm spreading the previous object on top of what, first, before I now had my new C, right? That is spread. But whenever I am trying to destructure and I want to extract the last thing out, right, it will bring out what, the last thing, right? Anytime you're seeing the last thing, somebody's bringing out the last thing from something, that's where your rest really what works. Does that make sense? Does that clarify the difference between what, your rest operator and extracting out the rest, right, in something? What other thing am I supposed to talk about today? What other thing am I supposed to talk about today? I'm supposed to talk about destructuring. I think we've talked about destructuring. Yeah, you can even, I think Another thing that destructuring gives to us is destructuring works when we have functions. How many of you know that, right? Destructuring works when we have function. No, the name must not be rest, right? We can use second. If I put second here, right? If I put second there, what happens? So second is going to be the array. The name is not so long, but the major thing that the compiler is looking for is what? The thing that has these three dots. And it must not be the first thing. Again, because if it's the first thing, you're going to break the compiler. I don't think it can be the first thing. Can it be the first thing? Okay, I think it can be the first thing. Yeah, it can be the first thing. Well, there's one rule that it has that I cannot remember off the top of my head now. And it has a particular rule. I think you cannot use two together. I think so. Yeah, this is where the problem. I think this is where the problem is. Yeah, you can't use two together here because now you're confusing the computer, right? The computer does not know which one to pick, right? So in a way, right, you don't want to confuse the computer too much. So also they shine very well when we are using functions, right? They shine when we are using functions. So let's say we have a function, right, to add two numbers, right, which is a and b. This is the most written function in my life. If I've written a function in my life, this is one here. So basically, so instead of calling this function by doing add one comma what, add one comma what, comma two, what can we do, right? So I mean, we can make it interesting by saying what you are expecting an object, right? And anybody who is going to be passing something here must now pass in an object, right? So now it's now saying that again, the idea is that we now have what? What's the error message I'm having here? Where's the error coming from? I don't know which line exactly the error is coming from, but if we call this function and you pass, if I call this function here, it's not supposed to throw an error though. Let's see. Oh, I think I know why it might throw an error. I know why it's going to. What did I write here? Can somebody help me here? What have I written? What kind of engineer is this? What kind of engineer is this? Right, so now the computer is able to, the computer is now able to like destructure A out of this place, B out of this place, right? So functions, I think there's a rule that some companies have like, if the parameter that you're passing to a function is more than 2 or is more than 3, just make sure you use what? An object to accept the parameter. So automatically when we use an object to accept the parameter, then we can destructure, right? You can destructure something out, right? So that is the way it works. So destructuring helps us to create what? Smart function parameters, right? It helps us to create smart function parameters. So this helps us to now set what? This now helps us to set default value, right? You can set a default value, right? Or majorly you can set default value or do anything you want to do, right? So those are the advantages of what? Destructuring. Do we understand the structuring, right? It's very, very handy. And I think if you look at React does a lot of the structuring, right? The hooks, right? Whenever you are using use state hook, right, you need to destructure it to extract out what the state and the set state action what function, right? And if you're using, I think, use form action, which is the new hook that is coming in 19, that returns like the state is spending and the action in itself. I think it returns 3 things there. So React uses that pattern a lot. And you would have also noticed in React that React does not use object destructuring, right? They enforce array destructuring so much within the pattern. So anybody who is writing React a lot, you would always notice that you always have the need to use array what? Destructuring, just because of the way React in itself was designed. So I mean, one final thing I may want to talk about is what? Object dot what? Group by. Object dot group by. So what does object.groupBy does for us? Let's see, do we have something here? So object.groupBy is pretty much very new, right? Object.groupBy is pretty much very new. So what does it do, right? It just allows us to group stuff, right? Before now, in JavaScript, we've not had a way for us to group things, right? So if you want to group something, you have to write a reduce, or you have to use Lodash, or you have to use any external helper to help you to group something. But now we now have a static method, group method, that elements of a given iterable according to the string values return a provided callback function. The return object has a separate property for each value containing the array. This method should be used to group names, can be used to, can be represented by strings. If you need to group element by a key, some attributes, you can also use map.groupBy. So the group by accepts two things, right? The item that you want to group on and a callback function based on the scenario that you want to group. So number one, right? The criteria here is what? It must be an iterable, such as what? An array, right there. So look at this now. I can group what? This array that we have here based on what? I think all these things are even. They are odd. How come we declare something and we don't have odd? Let's say we had even. If we go and add even to the top here, let's just add even numbers to the top. Let's say 8, 6. If we add this to the top, we can do a group by, right? Group by ARR. And I want you to group by what? Based on what? Each item inside of that thing. And the condition that I want you to check is what? If item is, I think if I want to group them by, if I do this doesn't give me what I want. This is not going to give me what I want. This is just going to give me, it's just going to give me evens alone. Like this is just going to filter, but I don't think this is what I am looking for. This is not what I'm looking for. Yeah, this is not what I'm looking for. I need something more than this. So for the group, but let's just see one example again. I've forgotten how to group this thing, how to use this group by. So you group by this and you return, you group by this and you return. What does the callback function return? I've forgotten. The callback function just returns, I've forgotten how to do this. I want to group by, okay, I think I know what I want to do now. I think I know what to do. So I'm grouping by this, and if it is this, I'm returning even. Yes, this should work. This must work. I think so. It has to work. What is missing here? If item is supposed to be the individual thing there. Is the spelling of the group by correct? Object.group by. There's a bug somewhere here. I'm doing something I'm not supposed to be doing. Come on. What are we missing here? Do I have to? I'm not sure. I think item is supposed to be supposed to be in an object state. I think so. If I want to do this, does it mean I have to do this? No, I'm not sure I have to. Okay. It necessarily does not have to, okay, let's break this down. Let's go slowly. I think we can, let's just do this, right? And this is supposed to return something. Object.group by is not a function. Are you sure that Node.js support Object.group by? That is something I need to confirm. Object.group by is undefined inside Node.js. Yeah. Let's see whether we have it here in Dino. Object.group by is undefined. Yes, it's inside Dino. What is happening with Node.js? I can't believe that. What version of Node.js am I running on first? Somebody please help me. I'm running on Node. Um, I'm running on Node 20. Can I stop this and switch my node? To the latest one. NVM use 22.20, and now I'm on the latest one, and we can stop this node server right here and pop it back up, and object.group by should work now. Still, you don't have it in the latest one. Are you kidding me? Group by, whoa, we don't have it here. Let's check Born. Let's see whether we have it here. Object.group by. Okay, Born also has it here. So now let's declare an array here. Let ARR equals to what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And this is an array. Then we can then do new obj equals to what? We want it to break it down into a object that looks like this. Obj, it will be what? String of what? You would have even, right, colon, the array of even numbers, right? And we would have what? Odd, and the array of what? Odd numbers. So for example, now under even, we're supposed to have, is 1 even? I'm not sure whether 1 is even or not. Well, I can't. Even numbers are numbers divided by 2 alone and themselves. I can't remember. So odd, what do we have under odd? We should have 1 under odd, 1, 3, and 5. If this is correct. So this is what we're supposed to get. We're supposed to get something that looks like this. So let's try to work on obj2 equals to what? So object.group, right? Object.group by, and this takes what? The array is the first thing that we are passing, and we can pass a callback function that accepts what? Each item, that is the singular thing inside of that array. So it will pick each thing inside of that array, and you pass it into what? A callback what? Into an arrow function, and you're saying that what? Check if item divided, right, integer division by 2 is equals to what? 0. And if this is 0, I need you to what? Cap some things for me back as what? Even, or you cap it back as what? Odd. I think this is supposed to give me something. Can you see that? What? This is powerful, right? Having this kind of power right at our disposal means now you can now group by. You don't necessarily have to use. So that way it is filtering and separating each thing that is inside of the array, like it's separating them into their right object, and it is so beautiful. You don't need we don't need Lodash. We don't need anything to just like get this done. This is just pure JavaScript right there, and I think it's inside Chrome. We have this same inside Chrome, so let's try inside Chrome, but I'm sure it's inside Chrome. We have it inside the major browsers already. So we have console, Again, can we see my console? Can we see my console? It is, I think you can really do a lot of amazing things with this if you know like what you want to do, right? Because I feel like the power is limited, like it's unlimited in the sense like if you know what you're doing. So we can do obj dot group by, right? You're grouping it by the array, and then you want to pass it a callback, which is what? Each item, right? And check if each item is now what? If each item integer division of what? 2 is equals to 0. So if it's equals to 1, then I can say it's what? Odd, right? Or it is what? Even, right? This is cool. This is cool. Like I've not seen anything that is cooler than this. So cooler than this. So this is object.groupBy is the new signing key in the object static method in object. So it just allow you to just just group stuff. So and it also goes down to like if we have like complicated stuff, let's try to do a complicated stuff like persons. What can I do? I don't want to write too much. Can I hack ChatGPT to help me? ChatGPT, give me array give me five arrays of persons with property name and age. Property name and age. Okay. Jesus Christ. ChatGPT know the year word. Just give me one object. Now me no hear word. Sorry, I give ChatGPT the wrong instruction. God. But ChatGPT, thank you. So let's see what I can do with this. We just come in here and we have 5 things. So we can turn the whole 5 things into one array. Let's combine everything together into one array. ARR new, right, equals to what? Spread person 1, comma. No, we don't even need to. Do we need to spread it? Yes, I think I need to spread it. Person 1, comma. Person 2, person 3, person 4, and person 5. And I think I should have a very long array now. Jesus Christ, it is people. Oh my God. Thank you. And I was there writing person, like I know what I was doing. People, right? People 1, people 2, and people 3, and people 4, and people 5. So this is just beautiful. And so we have a new array of what? Very large stuff there. Now let's look at it again and see what we can do with them. So we want to separate them into maybe categories, right? We can separate them into categories, right? Different categories. Let's separate them to 20s, 30s, and 40s. 20s, 30s, and 40s. Can we do that? We can group them into what? 30s and 40s, right? Obj, right? Dot what? Dot group. And we can say group by, and we want to group array new by what? What's the condition? So if we say item here now, item is pointing at what? Each object inside of what? Item here is pointing at each object inside of the array. So we now want to say that if Let me write this here because I might need to write some long stuff here. So here I want to do if, right? If item dot age is what? Is less than, let's say greater than, or let's say it's less than 20, it's less than 20, it's less than 30. Let's pick less than 30. So anything less than 30, we want to categorize them as what, 20s. And that way I want to return 20s, 20s. Is this correct for 20s? And if item dot age is what, greater than 30, right? Greater than 30, and what? And what? Item dot age is what? Less than what? 40. Then the person must be within their what? Within their 30s. 30s. I think this should be the right spelling of 30s. And if item dot age is what? It's just greater than what? 40. Just cap them and say what? They are what? Oldies. And I think so. This should what? What? Did you see that beautiful magic? And so we have some people that don't have group. I think this one should be less than what? What's their problem? We missed this. How did I miss this condition? I said less than 30, less than or equals to 30, right? That could have like less than or equals to 30 and less than or equals to 40. But you get the gist, right? The gist is just like array.group by is like very powerful in the sense that you can just group things. But the goal is expecting you to return a string, right? You must return a string or something, right? Return a string or something. And that is the key. So I have my oldies, right? These guys are 45 and 41. And my 30s are just within 30s. And my 20s are what? Less than 20s. Like, this is so powerful. Like, it's just so beautiful that we get to do things like this in JavaScript, right? And it's inside the browser. You can start using this in all your applications right there. So you're able to do some, some powerful grouping. I mean, it's just in almost all the browsers. Like, it's there in almost all the browsers there. So again, if you want to use a polyfill of it, it's inside core.js. If your browser that you are using, if your customers that you're working with at work doesn't support this, now you can use a polyfill for this. But I think that is a little bit of some of the magic I wanted to do today. I mean, this is like how many hours now already? This is 1 minute 45, 1 hour 45, 46 minutes. I said I was going to use 1 hour, or anytime I'm teaching and talking, I'm in the zone. I'm in the zone already. So, I mean, again, it's just a beautiful opportunity again to be back streaming. And we did some introductory stuff about object.keys, object.values, object.entries. We also looked at object.group by. And we talked a little bit about, AWK, SED, grep, JQ, and all these other terminal utilities, right, that you can use. And the last thing I talked about was, well, we talked about destructuring, right? Whether it is object destructuring, whether it is array destructuring, whatever kind of destructuring that you can need. And destructuring also powerful in that they allow you to rename a variable, or they allow you to set a default value, or they allow you to, right, you can use them in functions, right? Just the ability to, to just bring them inside functions to extract out variables easily. So basically that's the rundown. Tomorrow, hopefully, we can do some things on Next.js. I'm not sure whether I'll be able to, but if I'm not able to do the stream tomorrow, I would do a pre-recorded one, right, for tomorrow. So tomorrow is just going to give us a breakdown of all the things we've done so far in Next.js, and maybe next week we can talk about starting a full new project with Next.js, like a brand new project with Next.js. So I think with that I can stop the stream. We've come to the end of another episode of me just talking about JavaScript. So some maybe the next time I want to just go deeper into maps and sets, right? Just go a little bit deeper into maps and sets, and I also want to maybe go deeper into, if you check your JavaScript.info, right? We can do a lot more, in sense that I'm just currently trying to talk about all the things we have here under this category here. So today we've talked about the object keys and values and entries, and we've also talked about what else have we talked about today? We've talked about the structuring as well. So maybe we can look at array methods, iterables, and maps and sets. We can look at the four things together next week, Friday. So for those who joined, thank you so much for joining. I do appreciate you guys. I hope you've learned something new, right? I hope you've learned something new, right? All I can maybe ask of you is just tell somebody about the stream. Tell somebody who wants to learn JavaScript. Tell anybody right about the stream, right? And the YouTube videos are there. You can always get access to them. Also, I'm streaming to LinkedIn, and you can just keep telling people. Um, that's the only way like the audience can grow, right? If you want people to really get to know the latest thing, like this is like what we're doing is like the latest stuff nobody's really doing, so we're trying to fill in the gaps so that everybody knows like the latest methods and all these other things that you have in JavaScript. So that's it. Help me tell somebody that tells another somebody about the stuff I'm doing. I hope I can get a little bit more structured, right? And I can do like a workshop. I'm hoping I can do a workshop on React version 19. I think that would be very cool, right? If I can do a workshop kind of setting where we have like 4 hours blocked out and we just do like a workshop on all the new stuff that is coming in React version 19, and we then go ahead and build something with it. I think I'm thinking about something beautiful like that. And I don't know how it's going to work out, but I just think like there's so much I want to give out back, right? So the more I get like people to encourage me, the more I get like the good vibes and the energy from you guys, then I can just keep doing different things, right? So I hope I can put structure into it. We'll do like a serious workshop on maybe writing tests, or we do like a workshop on algorithms, big O notations, and all these other complex stuff, right? I just hope we can figure it out, and we can always do something that is nice. But thank you for joining again once more, and do have a wonderful night rest wherever you're joining from, and hopefully I see you guys tomorrow. Again, if I'm not able to stream tomorrow, I'm going to have something pre-recorded that you can all watch, that brings a summary of all the things that we've built, right? Yeah. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful night rest. Bye for now.